What blocks your spiritual gifts and your creative gifts? What blocks your spiritual gifts and creativity? That's what we're going to be exploring in this video. I was going to call this the 5 things that block your spiritual gifts, but I'm going to be freestyling and channeling this one. So I don't know if we'll do 5 or more or less or what it is, but you're going to get what you need is what is important. So I want to talk about this because this is a topic that I know a lot of people go through where they start to have experiences with their spiritual gifts, their intuitive gifts, such as perceiving spirit guides, reading people's energy, hearing the voices of a person's heart or mind, and all these different other experiences. And when you experience this, it feels amazing. It's like, it's magic. It literally is magic. And if you start to pursue this as a path in terms of, wanting to live from this space and offer guidance, what can happen is you can end up having experiences where you feel disconnected from your gifts or disconnected from your spirit guides, or like for some reason you just can't access it and you don't know why. And what this can trigger is inadequacy. It could trigger feelings of being hard on yourself. And like, what did I do wrong? Oh shit, I shouldn't have said that thing. Or, oh man, I shouldn't have smoked weed last night. Or, oh shit, whatever those things are, thinking that was actually the problem when it never is, right? You are spirit. Your spiritual gifts are meant to be infinite. You are infinite. So no finite experience can actually block your gifts. So know that there's nothing you could ever do wrong because you are your gifts. And from one perspective, you are your gifts. So let's talk about what can block, seemingly block, give you the experience of a block of your spiritual gifts. Speaking from my own experiences, because I have had a lot of experiences. Actually, just to highlight this, now that I have my moment, just to highlight this. Oh man. So part of the reason why I can speak about this so well, part of the reason is because I went through the experience years ago. So in 2012 was when my gifts reawakened and just came online in a conscious way where I was like, whoa, I'm seeing spirit guides, I'm reading minds, I'm traveling dimensions, I'm doing all the magical things. And it was just like God turned on inside of me, right? And so you just feel very, oh, right? And what happened was after about, I don't even know, like I want to say after about a year or somewhere within a year, I started to go through these experiences because at that time, my gifts were always on, always. I could always tune in and tap into anything. I could always talk to always. And I was, seeing guides in the physical world and like magical a la max. And then what happened was I started to go through these experiences where my gifts would seemingly disappear. Back then I used to call them my abilities. I'm like, what happened to my abilities? And I didn't know what was happening. And every time they would disappear, I would get triggered because I'd be like, oh, what did I do wrong? Shit, I shouldn't have done this, and I would feel inadequate. And then I would get triggered and I would get just thrown off my center until eventually I would get the insight I needed, be it from a friend or myself or whatever it was, or just time passing by that clicked things in and all of a sudden things were back on. And then I was good and trying not to lose it again, right? That experience of the gifts being there and then seemingly disappearing happened on and off for 3.5 years. 3.5 years. If you can put yourself in my shoes of having what it felt like was like you're being given these gifts and then they're taken away. And then you're given these gifts and then they're taken away. On and off for like every few days for 3.5 years. What I didn't know was that my guides were preparing me to learn all the inner workings of our spiritual gifts to such a degree that I know every little subtlety, almost like a car mechanic. It's like I was being brought through this training, this energy mechanic training, where I was being brought through every possible way, subtle and significant, that you could disconnect from your gifts, seemingly disconnect from your gifts, so that I could learn how to reconnect and also learn how to help others who go through that experience. Because after that 3.5 years, I found myself running a business called the Life Center, where I was mentoring mentors and teaching other psychologists and coaches and therapists how to use their spiritual gifts. And through that, they would have moments where they would experience blockage, and they'd be like, I can't, what's going on? And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know that one. I've been through that one. I recognized the frequency, and I was very quickly able to liberate those people so they didn't have to go through the hardship that I went through. So I have a lot of experience with spiritual gifts, the inner workings of your gifts, the practicalities of it. And I've been doing this for many, 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 many lifetimes, which is something I could say now because I remember. That said, let's talk about what can block your spiritual gifts, the main things that will happen. The first thing, this is probably the most obvious one, but the first main thing that can block your spiritual gifts, and mind you, when I say the word block or disconnect, it's really the experience of a block or the experience of disconnection. You're not actually blocked or disconnected. All right. So I just want to make sure that's clear. You're just creating that experience in your consciousness. So the first thing that could create that block is inauthenticity. Inauthenticity. If you're not being the authentic version of yourself, imagine yourself in your consciousness on a radio station, and you're always on a certain radio station. You could either be on the station of who you think you need to be, or on the radio station of who you truly are. When you're on the radio station of who you truly are, your authentic self, you're going to have access to your authentic gifts. If you're on the radio station of who you think you need to be, well, even though your gifts are still there, you might experience being disconnected from them because you're not being the authentic you. Now, what does that mean, authentic you? So there's different levels, is that the word I want to use? There's different aspects of authenticity, right? There's being authentic in terms of being embodied in your soul's personality. So, if your inner being, if your essence, if your soul is very playful and silly and goofy and like cracks jokes, but you have learned to have a certain kind of composure and like tries not to laugh and was very serious and professional because that's how you're taught that you should be when you're talking about things. You feel that? I don't even like to do it, but like, if you do that, then that is a form of inauthenticity, even if it's unconscious. Your soul's personality is where the magic is at. That is the prime radio station. So there's that form of authenticity in terms of being who you truly are, as opposed to being all these composures and learned attitudes and behaviors, which could even go into the spiritual realm. I'm going to talk about this real quick. I'm on a rant. In the spiritual communities, I very often see these learned behaviors that are coming from an inauthentic place with beautiful intentions. Inauthentic place, good intentions, such as, oh, brother, blessings, yes, oh, ah. Yeah, so it's beautiful because the intention is just, to be present and vibrant and all these things, but the result is these learned behaviors that come from wanting to fit in to the spiritual dynamic, the spiritual community, and at the expense of your authentic expression, which is usually a little bit more rawness. You probably have a little bit more gangster in you. You probably have a little bit more, right? That gets dampened when you have those learned behaviors. And then on the other spectrum, there's those who do that authentically. I know plenty of people who are all light and love and blessings, beloved, and all those type of things from a very authentic place. So I'm not knocking the behavior. I'm not knocking anything. I'm just pointing out what's the mechanics, right? Energy mechanic. I'm pointing out what's going on. So one version of authenticity is embodying your soul personality. And another version of authenticity is simply speaking from your heart at all times. Even if you're not being your soul's personality, like even if you're a really goofy person, but you're talking really serious, If you're speaking from your heart, that is authentic, and that is enough to vibrate you in resonance with your higher self, because your heart is in resonance. It plays the same tune as your higher self. So when you're speaking from your heart, you're also vibrating in resonance with your higher self. So you're able to receive your gifts and information that much more clearly. All right. So that's number one. Inauthenticity is one of the biggest things that can block your gifts. So that's the obvious one. Let's go to the slightly less, what can be less obvious. So number two, which I'm going to talk about, is if you're feeling suppressed in your expression in any way, it will block your gifts. It will give you the experience of blocking your gifts. What do I mean by that? Let's say you're in a relationship, or you're living with someone, or you're with family. And when you're out with your friends, or when you're by yourself, you come alive in a certain way, right? You dance, you express, you talk about certain things, you share certain ideas. But then when you're back home with your partner or your family, you dampen your expression, and you are afraid or resistant or uncomfortable to share certain thoughts and ideas and feelings that you actually really want to share, because you're afraid of being judged, or you're afraid of triggering or hurting people, or whatever the thing is. If you are suppressing your truest expression in any way, you're also suppressing your gifts, because you are your gifts. So if you're suppressing you, you're suppressing your gifts. Does that make sense? So the idea is to create the space for yourself for you to be able to be expressed in your expressions that aren't being expressed. For example, and I've had many moments like this. For example, if you feel, let's say with your partner, with your lover, if you feel afraid of being raw, where you want to be raw and just say what it is, and you're tired of having to be so spiritually correct and polish the vibration of what you have to say so that it's in a nice little package and it'll be received well, and you're tired of doing that, and you're actually just wanting to say things more raw, like you do with your girls or you do with your boys, say that. Share that first. Create the space for yourself by saying, like, hey, can I talk to you? I noticed that I suppress myself. I noticed that I suppress myself in my expression, my more raw expressions, because I'm afraid. I have certain insecurities about how it might be taken that have nothing to actually do with you, or maybe they do, but I have no intention of projecting. I just know I've been suppressing myself, and it's time. Right, what I'm doing right now is I'm creating the space for myself by letting you know that I need to let myself express more from this space. And when you say that, if the person has even a slight amount of love for you, they're going to create the space for you to be like, yeah, of course I want to hear, like, what is it? And that doesn't mean it won't be scary. That doesn't mean it won't be challenging. That just means you finally created the space. And now you can let yourself open up and be expressed in those ways, and know, like the saying goes, the truth shall set you free. The truth shall set you free. And it is safe to be you. It is safe to be the you that you are afraid to be. It is always safe to be you. In fact, it's the most magical thing you can be. So create space for yourself if necessary to be that deeper man or deeper woman, to be expressed, so that your gifts and all of you can flow through you more easily, and you're not keeping things compressed or suppressed or depressed, right? Free yourself, create the space. So that's number two, is if you have suppressed expressions inside yourself, suppressed expression, suppressed you, it'll block your gifts. Number three is if you do not allow your emotions to flow properly, you're going to clog up your gifts. Don't clog up your gifts, motherfucker. So you're going to clog up your gifts. Meaning, and I usually see this in men more so than women, but it's not a gender specific thing. If you don't allow yourself to feel your emotions, for example, if you're furious, if you have anger inside and you're raging, and you don't let yourself experience your feelings because you're afraid of how it might be received, or hurting people, or whatever case may be, you're going to experience emotional constipation, right? And so if your emotions, your energy in motion, emotion, if they're not moving around and circulating, then energy, such as the energy of your gifts, can't circulate either. You're constipated. So be aware. If anger is a really good example, because I know a lot of people who will, when they feel angry, they keep themselves very composed, and they'll be like, I'm really angry and I'm just tired of this. I'm fed up, and he really pisses me off. Um, and yeah, I'm just tired. And so there's a bit of an incongruence, because you might hear that expression. They're saying they're angry, but you're not feeling their anger because they're keeping it composed, they're keeping it contained, as opposed to being like, I'm fucking fed up, like enough, I'm just tired, like fuck. Right? Like, letting yourself feel those emotions, and again, creating the space for yourself if necessary to say like, hey, I just need to be heard right now. I don't need you to try and fix me, or I don't need advice. I just really need to be heard. And this might come out messy and ugly, but there's just parts of me that are wanting to be expressed. Some might be right, some might be wrong, but hey, if you could hear me, that'd be great. Create the space for yourself so that you let yourself feel your anger, let yourself feel your sadness. Don't hold back tears, don't hold back emotions, feel them. Emotions are beautiful. Every emotion is beautiful. I believe my brother Oren has a quote. I don't remember the quote exactly, but he basically says something to the effect of, any emotion that you don't love controls you. So if you don't have love or acceptance for your anger, it's going to control you. For your shame, it's going to control you, so on and so forth. So let your emotions flow. Feeling is healing. All right. So feel. Be like a dog, right? Dogs don't limit their, because a dog has no resistance or judgment on its emotions. That's why it can go from sad to super happy so quickly. It's because there's no resistance to it. It'll let itself fully experience the sadness, and then you'll be like, hey boy, and all of a sudden its tail's wagging again in its back, right? It's because it just allows it to flow. So number 3 is, be aware if you have suppressed emotions, if you have emotional constipation, and to create the space for that to be experienced. Number 4, this one I talk about all the time, is seriousness. Seriousness in the sense of rigidity. So if you are being overly rigid inside yourself, or about a situation, or about a person, or just if you're being very rigid and solemn, you're going to block your gifts. Because feel the vibration of seriousness and rigidity, right? That's the sound it makes too. And where the experience of your gifts is very playful, right? Whenever you feel music flow through you, inspiration flow through you, spiritual gifts flow through you, it feels magical. It feels the complete opposite of rigidity, right? So if you're carrying too much rigidity, or being too serious about a situation, or being a little too concentrated and focused, as opposed to being more open and more lighthearted and more curious and more playful and more like, I don't know, and more in the unknown and more like that, right? Then you're going to cause a blockage, because your gifts are on the vibration of creativity, playfulness, and openness, and all the things that your inner child is, basically your essence. And it's not solemn, it's not serious and rigid in that way. So be aware of seriousness. Number 5, I guess we're doing 5. This is one that most people wouldn't think of. And that is, if you're too, and this might not apply to everyone, but if you're too, what's the word I'm looking for? If you're too held on to techniques. So let's just say you're a healer, or a hypnotist, or a coach, or whatever case may be, or just a person who helps people. If you've learned a certain modality, and you've learned certain techniques and you've gotten good at those and they've become your comfort and safety zone, or if you've just been taught to go by the book in a certain way because that's how your schooling was, if you hold to those things too rigidly, it will also block your gifts, because your intuition sometimes needs to go outside of what you learned to get something else, to bring something through in that way that your modality doesn't have. Like, so imagine if your modality is a book and it's like, yeah, but there's nothing in these pages that this person needs. We need you to we need to download something from cosmic Google into you that has nothing to do with this book. But as long as you're holding on to these modalities, these techniques, this book, you're not going to allow for that transmission to come through. So if you hold to techniques, if you hold to your teachings way too rigidly, and I don't care if maybe I don't care is a strong word, but whatever. You might see it as, but you know, this is the respectful way to do this, and da 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 da. Pay attention to the rigidity, because at the end of the day, what's most important is not that you went by the book or you did the techniques. It's that the person that you're serving gets what they need, right? They get the support, the love, the transformation, the expansion, the ascension that they need. So be willing to go off the book. Be willing to, and you'll notice this. You'll notice this when you're in session with someone or you're trying to help someone and you're trying to use your usual system or techniques, and it feels draining for you. It feels like long and drudgerous in a certain kind of way. And you're just kind of like, okay. And you're just trying to do it anyway because it's by the book, but at the same time, you can feel a lightness and you just feel something in another direction. You just feel like, you know what? I don't know if this is going to make sense, but I feel like just asking you about this or exploring this way. And it might feel a little scary because you don't know how things are going to unfold. But the fact that you feel a lightness, that you feel a ping, that you feel a curiosity in that direction lets you know that that is where the magic is, because it doesn't feel heavy. All right. So that is tip number 5, is let go of techniques, let go of modality, let go of the by the book method if it's holding back the flow. So those are my 5 tips, or my 5 things that block your spiritual gifts and how to solve them. And so if you like this video, please leave me comments down below. I love reading your comments and seeing what you guys received from this. Tell me what your favorite tip was. And maybe you have some tips of your own that you discovered that I didn't mention in this video. And please, again, if this did help you, please go ahead and share this video so it helps get the message out there. I always appreciate those shares. And yeah, and that's it. So sending you so much love, guys. Again, my name is David Lyon. If you want to learn more about me, check out livingmagic.life, and you'll find out all about all the new things I'm up to, including the mystery school that's about to be launched. All right. Peace, guys.